Obama tells Democrats to grow a pair, like his wife. Oh, that's a low blow. I'm kidding. But seriously, he says they got to toughen up. And we're going to show you what Democrats think toughening up really means. It's kind of sad. Also, Zohran Mamdani, once again, telling New Yorkers how they got to live their lives because he is a communist and communists do what they're going to do. But boy, oh boy, did he give a press conference that will open your eyes. And we found the Somalian version of Zohran Mamdani running for mayor in Minneapolis. We'll introduce him to you coming up in a second. And we're going there. We got a big segment on the latest Epstein developments. It's really more of a media conversation that we're going to have because that's kind of our wheelhouse here. And we're going to talk about what's going on with the conversation around Epstein and Bongino. Did he or didn't he? Will he or won't he? I don't know, but we'll talk about it. Coming up right now. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Come on, that Michelle Obama thing was funny. It was funny. It's a joke. The administration has its sleeves rolled up right now, streamlining monumental moves. However, it's difficult for them to take your personal finances into account. In fact, it's impossible. It's not their job. It's your job. They're going to fix the country. You look after your finances. And that's why tens of thousands of Americans are buying gold right now from Birch Gold. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 40%. Hello. Some central banks bolster demand for gold by buying in record quantities. And global instability and tension is among the highest in decades. You may be able to find peace of mind with gold. Birch Gold makes it extremely easy to convert an existing 401k or IRA into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Or, here's an idea, just buy some gold to store at home, just in case. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Birch Gold's going to send you a free info kit on gold. No obligation, only useful information. You know they've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. You know they've got tens of thousands of happy customers. It's time for you to take control of your savings. Today, do it. Text the word Larry to 989898. Do it today. Democrats are in deep, deep trouble. And so Barack Obama has some advice for them. Toughen up. Grow a pair. Step up. And, well, we're going to show you some amazing examples of how Democrats, well, don't have a pair. And we're going to show you the one person I think they think is going to really demonstrate this tough new guy image for the Democrats. We're going to show all that to you in a second. But first, let's get to Obama, as reported by the Morning Joe team this morning. They are reporting exactly what Barack Obama's message is to Democrats who are feeling a little out of sorts right now, considering, well, they lose every opportunity they have. Here's Obama's message.
And now to U.S. politics. Former President Barack Obama delivered a dose of tough love to Democrats at a private DNC fundraiser over the weekend. Obama urged Democrats in despair over the state of the country to toughen up and do something. NBC News obtained excerpts of Obama's remarks from the president's team, which read in part this: I think it's going to require a little bit less navel-gazing, a little less whining, and being in fetal positions. It's going to require Democrats to just toughen up. Obama went on to say he wasn't surprised by what President Trump has done, but that he has been surprised by Democrats who, quote, stood for all kinds of stuff, who seem like they're kind of cowed and intimidated and shrinking away from just asserting what they believe, or at least what they said they believe. The former president pressed liberals to stop wallowing in disappointment and take action, saying, quote, what's being asked of us is make some effort to stand up for the things that you think are right and be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable in defense of your values. If we do our jobs over the next year and a half, then I think we will rebuild momentum and we will position ourselves to get this country moving in the direction it should.
Some tough love there, Gene Robinson, but there have been examples. For instance, I brought it up on this show, USAID. When I talked to Democrats about fighting for USAID, talking about it every day, they said, Americans don't really like foreign aid. Maybe we better stay with it. No, you've got the richest billionaire in the world shutting down relief funding for the poorest children in the world, for the poorest of God's creatures, and they're afraid that Peoria may not like it? I mean, please, come on. It's like sometimes the answer is far more simple.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And now
In
to
fact, let
U.S.
me start right
politics,
there at
former
the
President
end.
Barack Obama delivered.
Hello. Let me start right there at the end with Joe Scarborough's analysis, because I love it when people in Manhattan, the elites of the elite, although just to remind you, they're not in Manhattan right now. They're not in Washington, D.C. either. I know it looks like they're sitting in Lafayette Square with the White House right behind them, right? No, they're in their little garage studio in Florida. But that's fine. I do love it when elites like this, who make $1 million a year reading a teleprompter and making sure that their hair looks good on television, lament to elected officials. You know, he used to be an elected official. He can't hack it anymore. He doesn't like having to go back to voters and answering to them every 2 years. That's why he decided to go into television. Presumably, maybe there are other reasons. I don't want to go there. Joe Scarborough sits there lecturing elected officials about what they should do to man up, toughen up, and grow a pair. Because what? You're afraid of what they're going to say in Peoria? Well, guess what? If you're the congressman from Peoria, you should be concerned about that. Because that's what you're paid to be concerned about. It's hilarious. So here's Barack Obama saying, hey, you Democrats need to toughen up, stand up for what you stand for, or at the very least, what you pretended like you stood for. I liked that little slight. I like that little backhanded jab from Obama. He hates politics. He hates having to answer to the voters. He disdains all of this. But at least he was good at faking his way through elections, and he's a little intolerant now and out of time or patience for those Democrats who can't bullshit people the way he was so good at bullshitting people. And so he says, stand up for what you believe in, or at least what you claimed you believed in, and you'll be rewarded. And I want to say, I agree. Democrats, man up, step up, grow a pair, and stand for what you've always believed in. Men playing in women's sports. Men being able to go into a little girl's locker room if he wants to identify as woman. Please make sure that you fight for taxpayer-funded sex change operations for convicts. And even more importantly, make sure you fight for taxpayer-funded health care for pregnant men. But first, step up and explain to the American people how men can be pregnant. Stand for what you believe in. Stand for open borders. Stand for benefits, federal benefits up and down the ledger for illegal immigrants in this country. Stand for protecting illegal immigrants in your sanctuary cities. Stand for protecting illegal immigrants who have committed crimes. Make sure that you stand for them to be released without bail so that they can go murder American citizens. Stand for what you believe in. Listen to Obama. He knows what he's talking about. Now, we have a couple of examples here of Democrats proving that they need to toughen up. Here's our first one from last night. Ana Navarro was given a little bit of pushback from Brad Palumbo. Brad Palumbo is not even a conservative. He's a libertarian. Brad Palumbo takes issue with the characterization from Ana Navarro about how ICE is behaving in enforcing the law. And watch Ana Navarro's hysterical reaction. She's completely unhinged on CNN last night. And from Barack Obama's perspective, this is probably a good example of, maybe you need to toughen up and fight back. Or actually, given Obama's penchant for identity politics, maybe this is exactly what he wants.
Also, I want to respond to you saying that I was hyperbolic when I talked about a reign of terror.
That is hyperbolic.
No, it might be hyperbolic for you as a white man.
Oh, okay.
It's certainly not hyperbolic for me as a
racist
Latino.
now.
No, I'm not being racist.
It's to dismiss my opinion for being a white
No,
man.
I'm not dismissing your opinion. I am
Yes,
telling
you
you
are.
that what the Latino community, the
A lot
brown
of them
community
disagree with you.
in
You do not
America.
speak in one voice.
Okay, well, let me speak with my voice. I mean, you said I was being hyperbolic. Let me respond.
Racially, sure.
I'm not. You being a white man as an insult.
When you invoke it to dismiss my
Being a
opinion,
white man
yes.
as an insult.
When you invoke it,
Are
as
you?
an
Do you
argument.
think? Do you
right.
think Latinos are living under circumstances
I'm
that
gonna
other
hit
people may
pause
not
on
be
this
right now in
conversation
this
because
country?
We're about to have a whole conversation about that very thing. But I just want to make a point that Brad, all she's saying is that her view of the situation is different from yours. I don't think that's an
She
insult.
basically said, I'm wrong because I'm a white
She
man.
just said, I see it.
No,
She
I
said,
said, I see it differently
she
because
said,
I'm an
I
immigrant
see it
Latina.
differently from you, which is not an insult. It's not, and it's also not a racial
It's also
insult.
not an explanation why
But
I'm wrong.
we have a lot more to discuss on this very.
Actually, it is a racial insult because she didn't just say, I see it differently than you. She said, I'd see it differently from you because of the color of your skin. That's what she said. But of course, we're used to Abby Phillips coming in to the rescue to save her liberal friend. So yeah, toughen up. Maybe that's the example of toughening up. Or how about the Democrats who went down to Alligator Alcatraz? We talked about Debbie, what's her name, Schultz yesterday, being very concerned that people have to brush their teeth, in a bathroom. And apparently there was more shenanigans down there by the Democrats. This is Democrats toughening up. They've got thick skin like alligators, right?
These politicians trying to create controversy where they're like, making things up or exaggerating?
Absolutely. I think probably one of my favorites was an individual had a thermometer, an infrared thermometer that they actually pointed at a light bulb, and it was 110 degrees. And it was, I knew it is 110 degrees. I said, let's actually pull that down to where the ambient air is at.
We know they didn't like the toilet system.
Yeah, so the toilet system, you showed that already. And, this is a standard mock-up toilet system that is in any secured facility. Again, we meet and exceed either the national standard or the state of Florida standard, whatever is a higher level, we meet or exceed that standard.
And these inmates, Kevin, these are well-fed inmates. There's no one starving to death.
Yeah, that might be one of my favorites, Jesse, is number one, it was a gray turkey sandwich. Well, she was about 6 feet away from that turkey sandwich box that was in a wrapper that I don't know how she could tell it was gray. However, think about it like this, Jesse. Individuals that go to a hospital, individuals that go and get Michelle Obama's lunches are getting the exact same thing. But then she turned around and asked, as a part of that same question, if they want second portions, can they come and get it? So it's either gray and it's too nasty to eat, or it's okay and can I get second helping?
Yeah, so that's a good example of how Democrats are perhaps not heeding Obama's advice in toughening up because they're concerned about the heat being emanated by a light bulb in the Everglades. Yeah. Maybe Obama's got a point. All right, so let me present to you what I believe will be their solution. They keep saying that they need to fight back and they got to punch Trump right back in the face, or J.D. Vance, or whoever the Republican is. They need to appeal to white men, strong, virile, straight white men while we're at it. So who are they going to pick? Who are they going to choose? This guy, drama queen, San Francisco Mayor Gavin Newsom. He appeared on a podcast because that's what Trump's doing, right? Is he going on those podcasts? Get me on one of those podcasts, but not one of those girly podcasts. No, I want a manly podcast. So Sean Ryan, former Navy SEAL, very popular guy, decided to have Gavin Newsom on the show. I like Sean Ryan. I like his show. I think he does a good job. He did not do a good job in this interview. Gavin Newsom, you want to prove you're a manly man? Go on Adam Carolla's podcast. I'm not even saying come on mine. I don't care about the clicks. I don't want them. I want to see you face a tough question now and again. I want you to go on Adam Carolla's podcast. You remember, you've done it before. Didn't end well for you back when you were lieutenant governor. So show that you've grown a pair, just like Obama suggests, and go on Adam Carolla's podcast. That said, let's explore a few of the greater moments of Gavin Newsom being a tough guy on Sean Ryan's podcast.
$5 billion in tax collection in California every year from undocs. $8.5 billion that we receive just at the state level of taxes. That was the last Pew estimate. So not insignificant. Backbone. I mean, it's half of our agriculture work. You care about farmers and ranchers. If that's what your number one go-to commitment, then you sure as hell should care about their workers. 41% of our construction workers, Texas and California have the highest percentage of their construction workers that would fall into that category. How the hell do we rebuild Altadena and Palisades? We're going to need a peak next year. We estimate about 70,000 workers without that workforce. Ain't going to happen. You're struggling here. You imagine it peak there.
All right.
So I think there needs to be a path.
Let me cut in here real quickly just to give you context. So he says undocs, that I guess that's their new name for illegal immigrants. Is that because he knows that they're being mocked when they say things like undocumented workers, right? You know his euphemism for criminal vagrants who live in tents on public sidewalks, defecating, urinating, and fornicating and doing hypodermic drugs and leaving their needles out in your kid's playground. You know what he calls them? Our unhoused neighbors. But he'll come up with a new term for them now that he's running for president. See, that stuff works in touchy-feely Santa Barbara or maybe in San Francisco, but not when you're trying to get votes in the rest of the country. So now, instead of calling them undocumented workers, and instead of using the correct legal term, which is either illegal alien or illegal immigrant, he's decided to call them undocs. That's going to be as good as Latinx, I think, for these guys. But he's talking about illegal immigrants, and he's saying, what are we going to do? Our economy needs them for our agriculture and for that. It's amazing. California became the golden state with the 7th largest economy on the planet before illegal immigration. How did that happen? How's that possible, Gavin? Would have been great for Sean Ryan to ask that question. Lamentably, he did not. Also, he talks about how illegal immigrants are so important for rebuilding Altadena and the Pacific Palisades. It has been 6 months, going on 7 months since the devastating fires burned down the Pacific Palisades. It's not a problem with a lack of construction workers and illegal immigrants being able to swing a hammer to build a new house, Gav. The problem in the Palisades is that they have issued so far, I believe, 4 building permits in over 6 months. 4 building permits. Trust me, it's not a problem with lack of labor. All right, that said, listen to this. Catch this one moment. When Sean Ryan actually asks a follow-up question here, although not the way I would have asked it, Sean.
Way for those folks as we secure the border, then we own that issue.
Do you feel that they're taking American jobs?
Not in Tulare County, not in Ventura County. I don't know many people that want a job out there in those packing facilities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see many people look like me jumping at those jobs. I just don't. Maybe there's some exceptions. I haven't seen the evidence of that.
Wow. I mean, tell me you're a racist and an elitist snob without telling me you're a racist and an elitist snob. Have you ever seen something so arrogant? I mean, he literally waves his hand at the idea of having a job out there. What does that mean, out there? Because everything comes from the perspective of west side of Los Angeles and Beverly Hills or the San Francisco Bay Area. But Ventura County?
And not in Tulare County. Not in Ventura County. I don't know many people that want a job out there.
Guess I do. Hey, Gav, by the way, you're the governor of the entire state. You're the governor of out there. Guess who wants a job out there? I know you don't know anybody who wants a job out there because your friends are in San Francisco and in Napa Valley. Guess who wants a job out there? People who live out there. American citizens who live out there. Instead of staying in their mother's basement smoking the pot that your campaign donors are growing on those very farms with the help of hundreds of illegal immigrants. American citizens would love to have a job out there. I know they're not your friends. They're not your campaign donors. They don't dine with you at French Laundry when the rest of us have to wear a mask. And did you catch the last part of that?
In those packing facilities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see many people look like me jumping at those jobs.
I don't see many people who look like me jumping at those jobs. People like me. People like me. White people like me, educated people like me. We don't get our fingernails dirty. I don't know anybody who would want jobs like that. What a prick. Sorry about that. Then the conversation turned to some of the policies in the state of California with regard to transgender procedures and ideology. California, of course, amongst the worst in the nation.
What about for your values? I mean, is 8 years old too young?
Yeah, I mean, look, I now that I have a 9-year-old, just became 9. Come on, man, I get it. So those are legit. It's interesting. Just the issue of age. It's interesting. as someone that's been so focused on equality, broadly, LGBT rights, particularly gay marriage, the trans issue for me is also novel. It's over the last few years. I'm trying to understand as much as anyone else. Whole pronoun thing, trying to understand all of that. Well, that was like the hell. I mean, all that stuff. I get it. All this stuff started to collapse on us. I joked with Charlie about Latinx.
Charlie. He's talking about Charlie Kirk. My buddy Charlie. This is why, unless you're ready to confront people like this and call them out on their bullshit, you don't have them on your show, or you don't go on their show, because then you become Charlie or Sean in this case. All right. A couple of things here that I want to explore. Let's listen to it again. The question here has to do with the age of children being allowed to mutilate their bodies, or even worse, their parents being convinced to mutilate their bodies and sterilize them, because the schools, the public government-funded schools, and the bureaucrats who work there as teachers or counselors or what have you, are manipulating parents and saying, hey, I know this freaks you out, but do you want to have a dead son or a living transgender daughter? It's really your choice. Well, that's of course not a choice. It's psychological warfare, and these are the government employees that Gavin Newsom empowers to thrust that kind of idea onto a parent. And it gets worse. We'll get to that in a minute, but watch.
What about for your values? I mean, is 8 years old too young?
Yeah, I mean, look, I now that I have a 9-year-old, just became 9. Come on, man.
So 8 years old is too young. Now that I have a 9-year-old. Boy, that's leadership. Tough guy, Gavin Newsom. Is this what Barack Obama means by getting tough? Because I think the American people love to see this sort of thing. You're not fooling anyone, you psychopathic, pathological liar. 8 years old is too young. Now that I have a 9-year-old, now that it affects me, you know what leadership is? Leadership is having the empathy to understand people who you can't directly relate to, but you can use your wisdom and listen to advice from people who have been there to make an executive decision. Let's say you're a governor. Maybe you don't need to have an 8-year-old to be able to know what's best for parents who say, please don't do this to us. But now that I have a 9-year-old, sure, I get it. That's psychopathic behavior.
I get it. So those are legit. It's interesting, just the issue of age. I haven't.
By the way, real fast, is this how a tough guy sits? I'm just curious. When Barack Obama says toughen up a little bit, is this the image? There's your manly man. All right, sorry, go ahead.
And it's interesting. I'm as someone that's been so focused on equality, broadly, LGBT rights, particularly gay marriage. The trans issue for me is also novel. It's over the last few years. I'm trying to understand as much as anyone else. Whole pronoun thing, trying to understand all of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand this as much as anyone else. As governor of California for the last almost 8 years now, he has overseen every single government agency forcing pronouns and the acceptance of multiple pronouns into government forms, government documents, government agencies. He's just now starting to figure out, but as governor, he's allowed this mayhem to happen. Famously with Charlie, he talked about how it's fundamentally unfair to let men compete in women's sports. And yet as governor, not only has he encouraged it, but he's done literally nothing to stop it. But he gets it. He can smile and he can use hand gestures and say, hey, yeah, I get it. I get it. Do something. You're the freaking governor. He does nothing because he doesn't want to stop all of the fundraising. And let's talk for a minute about the laws in California, because right now, as a parent, if the bureaucrat at the school, a teacher, a principal, a counselor, makes an allegiance with your child, a minor, a 9-year-old, convinces that 9-year-old to share sexual secrets with them, and through the course of that conversation, that 9-year-old reveals that they are feeling gender dysphoria and they believe that they are actually the opposite sex. If you as a parent don't go along with that, your child can be taken away from you. That's the law of California right now. So when Gavin Newsom is asked about that, what's his response? What's his manly, tough guy response?
In the major thing with that I hear the most is the kids, you know, and I don't know if California's one. I know Washington's one where, you know,
By the way, I'm sorry to do this, man, but Sean, dude, what do you mean you don't know if California's a state that has these laws? Why did you agree to this interview? You want to raise this issue and you say, I don't know where California is on that. Shouldn't you know where California is on that? I'm sorry. I don't like to criticize my colleagues. But, you know, if this ain't your wheelhouse, then don't play. Sorry. All right. Let's get back to it.
state can come in and basically take your kid if you're against gender affirming care.
Yeah, there's some, there's some nuanced language and around that. There are about 21 states, by the way, just on the California's hardly, again, it's not the only, everyone back to California.
There's no nuanced language. If you as a parent do not go along with your child's new gender identity, the state can take your child away from you. There's no nuance. There's no nuance language in there. And then he immediately says, we're not the only one. There's like 21 other states that do this. Oh, so just because you're alongside the lunatics like Tim Walz and Gretchen Whitmer and Kathy Hochul, it should be okay? No, right is right and wrong is wrong. Tough guy. Is this Obama's idea of toughening up? I'm going to sit with Sean Ryan and he's going to ask me softball questions and I'm going to be able to say whatever I want and roll over him. Well, that's a tough guy kind of thing to do. By the way, if you're a tough guy, do you do things like this? And this, and this, and this, and what is going on with the expressions? What's going on with the hand gestures? What's going on with this guy's movement? What causes the fact that he can't stand still at any given moment or say something without rocking back and forth and using his hands like he's some sort of mime doing street performance in Paris? Look at me. I am the governor. I will pull the rope. This guy's a freak. Freaking freak. But he's their best shot right now. When Obama says we got to toughen up and stand for what we believe, this is who he's talking to, and this is what he's talking about. And they are definitely going to prop him up. He's got the inside track right now, and he knows it, and he's got the money too. And the next time he comes knocking on your door, if you're a podcaster, and he says, hey, I'd love to sit with you and appeal to your audience, pause for a minute. And if you're not up to holding his feet to the fire, politely decline and say, you know what, you go sit with Adam Carolla first, and then we'll talk. That would be terrific. Hey, guys, if you like the show, I really would love it if you could buy my book. It's called Doge Squad, The Corruption Protocol. It's a spy thriller, and it's a kind of a new kind of spy thriller. It's high-tech. It's about the U.S. government, as you can imagine. I know it sounds like it's about Elon Musk, but it's not, actually. It's an original story, and it's a great summer read. You're going to love it. It's all about corruption in our government and a team of patriots who fight against it. And when you're done reading it, you can give it to your kids from 12 and up, and they'll love it too, and they'll love this genre of book. So check out my book, hardcover, paperback, audiobook at Amazon.com. Thanks so much. Zohran Mamdani is back in the news again. He held a press conference, and, you know, things are going downhill in New York, and they're going downhill fast. They've been going downhill really ever since Bloomberg left office. Bill de Blasio was an absolute disaster for that town. Of course, the defund the police movement, the rampant unemployment, the rampant illegal immigration, the crime, everything was ugly and despicable. But Zohran Mamdani, he knows exactly who's really to blame for everything going wrong in New York. Can you guess? Can you guess? Nope, not Eric Adams, the current mayor. Nope, not even former Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York. No, you know who's to blame.
As Bob was saying, fight back against an authoritarian administration and Donald Trump's attempt at ripping up the very fabric of the city that we call home, of the country that we belong to and that we love. We know that his policies, they are not just disappearing our neighbors, detaining our friends. They are also turning the world away from our city. The rapid decline of tourists coming to this city is an issue not simply for us living up to our word as a city that welcomes the world, but it's one that has very real economic impacts for artists that are with me here today and those beyond. It is the difference between whether or not people can afford to keep calling the city their home. And so I will be proud to be the mayor of this city, to stand up for this city, and to make it clear that the world is welcome in this city, and that we need to turn the page on this federal administration that is looking to inspire fear among people across this country and across this world when they come to think of who we are and what we are.
There you go. It's all Trump's fault. Tourism down in New York, and it's Trump's fault. Not the crime in the subways, not the crime in the streets, not the videos that we see of people just going into a store and taking everything off the shelves and getting away with it, or punching people on the street. Oh, it's not the rats either, by the way. Also, it's not the Democrat policies that created a cost of living in that city that makes it completely unaffordable to stay in a hotel or have a meal in New York. No, none of that is why people are avoiding New York. It's Trump's fault. It's Trump's policies. He's been president for 5 months. But the decline in tourism and the problem with the cost of living and the problem with unemployment and the problem of crime and all the things that are going on in New York, it's all Trump's fault. Funny, though, tourism is actually up in other parts of America. Washington, D.C. is not seeing a decline in tourism. In fact, I see people in Washington all the time who are coming here and wearing MAGA hats to go check things out at the White House. They love coming to D.C. right now. Also, tourism not down in Florida. You know, you want to go see Harry Potter at Universal, you're going to go. That seems to be doing just fine. It's just New York City that Trump's destroyed. That's weird, isn't it? That said, this was supposedly a press conference. Yeah, there's a podium and you got microphones from radio and TV stations. So when it came time to ask questions, somebody in the crowd asked the question there of the reporters. They said, hey, are you going to condemn the term globalize the intifada? After all, we just had a dude wearing a keffiyeh on behalf of Palestine shoot up a church in Kentucky this weekend. Let's not forget the dude who threw a Molotov cocktail at Holocaust survivors in Colorado, screaming, globalize the intifada. You've used that term. Will you condemn it? When asked that question, he had a good way of answering. The best way that a politician can answer a question like that.
I think we're done here.
Channel 7.
We're going to go. Come on.
We haven't had a chance to
We're wrapping up. Sorry, folks. We're wrapping up. I'm so sorry, guys.
Sorry. Let's talk about
That's just brilliant. You just smile and nod and just ignore the question. And then eventually the musicians will start playing music to drown out everybody else's question. Listen, it's a press conference with AFM Local 802, so it's understandable. That's the American Federation of Musicians. Local 802, they're the Broadway pit musicians. They play Broadway musicals, so why not have them standing behind me drowning out the reporters' questions? And guess what? Reporters are still going to love him. They're still going to love him. More videos are being unearthed of Zohran Mamdani that tell quite a tale about who this guy is. Here's the latest.
I worked until January, and then I took time away from my job. And one of the major reasons I could do so was because I knew that if I ran out of my savings, my family would be able to support me.
Wow. Spoken like a true American communist. I can pursue my dreams. I can do whatever I want. I can be an activist. I can promote socialism. And if I run out of money, mommy and daddy will help me out. Did you catch that?
I worked until January, and then I took time away from my job. And one of the major reasons I could do so was because I knew that if I ran out of my savings, my family would be able to support me.
A funny thing, though, in a socialist government, the city, the state, or the feds are mommy and daddy. You can do whatever you want. You don't even have to work. You can leave your job. Don't worry about it. Mommy and daddy will take care of you. But of course, mommy and daddy are the actual people who have jobs, who continue to work and pay into the system until they don't, because they start to realize, well, why should I be paying into this system if I'm just paying to support other people who aren't working? So I'm going to stop working and I'll take advantage of the system. Suddenly the system runs out of money, and then the state takes over businesses who aren't ponying up enough money. and then the state ends up owning everything. That's what happens in a communist state. It's theft. Some call it taxation, but this guy's a communist. Never forget that. Here it is, right on his website, Zohran for New York City. Cracking down on bad landlords. By the way, define what a bad landlord is. It's funny. Most cities and states have laws against abusive landlords. In fact, I've lived in New York before. Trust me, landlords have fewer rights than tenants there. I assure you. There are a lot of laws to protect landlords. To protect tenants and to keep a landlord from being a bad landlord. But this is a popular thing. Nobody likes their landlord. Everybody hates their landlord. Everybody hates their health insurance company, right? So whenever a Democrat is running for office, they always throw this out there because they can demonize them. Nobody likes big corporations either. They always demonize them as well. It always works because they divide us along class lines. And so he's deciding that he's going to crack down on bad landlords. And how does he do it? Look at this highlighted text. In the most extreme cases where an owner demonstrates consistent neglect for their tenants, the city will decisively step in and take control of their properties. The worst landlords will be put out of business. It would be great if you could pass a law that did that. Trust me, there are plenty of laws that punish bad landlords with fines and, yes, even jail time at some point. But now the next solution is the city takes over the property. Why does the city need to own a bunch of apartment buildings? Well, you know the answer to that. It's just your daily reminder that he is a bona fide communist up there. That's what New York is walking into. But New York isn't the only city. There is a candidate for mayor in Minneapolis who is playing from the exact same playbook as Zohran Mamdani. Politically, philosophically, and tactically. Take a look at this video from this new candidate for mayor.
Everyone keeps asking me, Omar, why aren't you doing more videos? As a state senator with a second full-time job and a kid on the way, I just haven't been able to find the time. I've also been fighting for you, passing things like tuition-free college for working-class families, rideshare protections for our Uber and Lyft drivers, and the legalization of fentanyl testing strips. But this summer, you're going to be seeing a lot more of me because we deserve nice things in Minneapolis too. To make an affordable Minneapolis that works for everyone, we need a mayor that works as hard as you do. I'm ready to work hard to 1. Build a Minneapolis that working people can afford to call home. 2. Protect our city from a hostile White House. And 3. Diversify our city's public safety response. By increasing the minimum wage to $20 by 2028 and passing rent stabilization to stop price gouging and incentivizing new construction, we can protect workers. Protecting all of our communities from Donald Trump means not letting MPD interact with ICE, whether it's for an immigration raid or not. Our residents deserve a mayor that will stand up to Donald Trump and say, no, not in our community. Did you know that the city's own data showed that 47% of calls to MPD can be diverted to non-police response? Cops aren't social workers. Investments in programs like these ensure that the appropriate response arrives when we call 911. And we can actually free up police resources to focus on violent crime that detracts from community safety. Oh, I'm sorry. It's my campaign managers again. They've been on my case all week about make more videos. I'll find the time tomorrow.
Now, I'm not just using hyperbole when I say it's playing out of the same playbook as Zohran Mamdani, though this is literally the exact same strategy, down to the style of the video, the zoom in and zoom outs on the video, the messages across the video, pushing it on Instagram and TikTok. The age of the guy, the political philosophy of the guy, every single one of those bullet point items that he's going to implement to fix Minneapolis is exactly what Zohran Mamdani has been running on in New York, because New York City is so much like Minneapolis, isn't it? No, not in any way whatsoever. This is literally the exact same script, the exact same political tactics, the exact same style. And the fact that he can prey upon a brand new racial and ethnic identity class that has grown in recent years in that city. Just like Zohran Mamdani is appealing to the brand new Arab, Muslim, Indian sort of political perspective in New York City after a huge influx of immigration from those communities over the last 30 years. Omar Fattah is appealing to the giant Somalian population in the Twin City area. A huge influx of Somali refugees who were brought in by the Clinton administration during the unrest in Somalia. We granted a refugee status to hordes of Somalian refugees, and for some inexplicable reason, Minneapolis became the place where they all ended up. And, well, you've seen the results. Ilhan Omar, congresswoman from that same area, Somali national, and now you've got Omar Fattah, who, by the way, was born in America. He's a natural citizen. He's a natural-born citizen. I believe in Washington, D.C. is where he was born. He's young. He appeals to the racial and ethnic communities there, and he's a communist, as you saw. In fact, our friend Dustin Grage over at Town Hall does an even more deep dive breakdown the similarities between these two. Let's take a quick look at it. Omar Fattah supported the failed campaign to defund and dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department, replacing it with a Department of Public Safety. You remember when Minneapolis, after the George Floyd situation, was the first in the nation to actually deconstruct their police department and bring in social workers and such. That was a failure. They reversed course very quickly. Why? Shockingly, because there was a lot of crime as a result of that decision. But here he was talking about it.
You are for it. Tell us why.
Well, Minneapolis has produced story after story of police brutality and overreach. And this charter amendment will give us a chance to take a new approach to public safety, mainly a comprehensive public health approach that we haven't before. By building a public safety department that has both police as well as professionals that are qualified to deal with complex issues, we can intervene before issues escalate and get out of hand. So
I do love it when socialists and communists, especially here in America, decide to reinvent everything in Western civilization that has been in place because of lessons we've learned from, centuries of dealing with this kind of thing. And say, oh, no, you guys got it all wrong. We'll figure it out. The effort went down into failure. And shockingly, as Dustin lays out here, white voters were all in favor of this amendment to do away with the police. It was the black voters who opposed it. And Fattah said that it was because of a disinformation campaign. Dustin also has more here. Omar Fattah is running on a platform of Trump-proofing Minneapolis. Sound familiar? It's exactly what Zohran Mamdani is doing. Fattah even showed up to a federal drug and human trafficking raid in Minneapolis to resist law enforcement. One woman was arrested for assaulting agents. The same investigation recovered 900 pounds of crystal meth. That's what being a sanctuary city is all about. He's standing up against the federal law enforcement officers who are uncovering 900 pounds of crystal meth and the illegal immigrants who are dealing it to your children. More from Dustin Grage here. Omar Fattah is no stranger to using his authority to push back against investigative agencies, especially when he frames it in racism. Take a look.
Our state government has been highlighting or tackling or targeting, I should say, our immigrant businesses, whether it's MDE, DHS, MDH, consistently targeting our businesses, not from evidence, but based off suspicion. How is that justice?
There you go. These cops are just coming after us because we're Somalian and because we're black, not because of any evidence. He said without any evidence. Minnesota State Senator Omar Fattah returns campaign contributions from donors tied to alleged Feeding Our Future fraud investigation. Apparently, there was actual criminal behavior there, not just because of race. There's more. Omar Fattah's controversies around campaign finance doesn't end there. His campaign volunteer, Muse Mohammed, was convicted of lying to a grand jury about illegally handling absentee ballots linked to ballot harvesting. What? I thought that never happened.
Complaints against a Minneapolis state senator. As John Croman reports, Senator Omar Fattah won't receive any major sanctions over his 2020 campaign.
2 testifiers with 2 attorneys with them.
This was the 4th hearing by the Senate Ethics Subcommittee about Senator Omar Fattah's 2020 campaign.
A group of Republican senators accused Fateh of quid pro quo, claiming the Minneapolis Democrat sponsored a $500,000 grant to Somali TV in exchange for free advertising on that YouTube channel.
No, there's no standard rate. Sometimes we negotiate.
But Somali TV President Syed Salah today backed up what he'd already said in a written affidavit that Fateh paid for his campaign ads and video production. The problem is Fateh used his own money and did not report it as a campaign expense at the time, something that's since been corrected.
Yeah, since been corrected. Democrats all circled the wagons, of course, because it's a one-party state up in Minnesota. But you get the picture. This guy is trouble, and of course he's going to win because he's going to be the hot new thing, and he's young, and he checks off lots of boxes, and of course, he's a communist. We talk about the similarities between he and Zohran Mamdani. You may notice one other similarity here that I mean, I'm hesitant to point it out, but you can't unsee it once you see it. This is Omar Fateh, and this is the Somali pirate in Captain Phillips. Omar Fateh, Somali pirate in Captain Phillips. Omar, pirate. It's uncanny. No, I know. All the crazy liberals who are watching this are going to start screaming that that's racism. Let me just be clear. I am not saying that black people look alike, and I'm not saying even that Somalians look alike. I am saying that this particular Somali has an uncanny resemblance to that particular Somali. It's not a race thing. It's not even an ethnic thing. It's a this guy thing. Look at him. That's like they were separated at birth. Just don't let him pirate his way in to state office or federal office after he becomes mayor. He's going to run for governor after that. And he was born in this country so he could run for president. This is the future of the Democrats. Keep an eye on him. Make sure you become a member of Town Hall's VIP institution. Townhallvip.com is where you go to become a member, and then you get an ad-free experience on all of the content at Town Hall, Hot Air, PJ Media, Red State, Twitchy, and Bearing Arms. Also, you get exclusive content just for VIP members. And coming soon, I'm hoping that we're going to have a VIP cruise. That's right. You got to be a member of VIP to be on the VIP cruise. It hasn't been announced yet. Kurt Schlichter floated the idea. I floated it here. If you're interested in being a part of the Town Hall VIP cruise, become a VIP member. Use my name, Larry, to get a 50% discount. Then send me an email. I've been forwarding them on to the powers that be. Send me an email, Larry@townhall. Wait, what's my email address? There it is. LarryOC@townhall.com. You've been sending me emails there about the cruise. You get it to me. I'm going to forward it to the powers that be. The more people who send in emails, the more likely it is we will have that Town Hall cruise where it'll be me on the ship. We'll do our show right in front of a live audience. We'll have Kurt Schlichter on the schlip. We'll have Derek Hunter. We'll have the whole team of clowns from Town Hall. Make sure you do that. Thank you. So we have an update on all the drama over at the Department of Justice and the FBI, and we've got some more information about the status of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, such as it is, because I think it's closed, but that doesn't mean that there's a lot of evidence that can be released to the American people, which I think a lot of people would like to see. And we have a really spirited debate between two of our favorites, Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro, about this very issue. You're going to want to see that exchange, and I've got much to say about it. But first, here's the latest, according to CNN, at the FBI, where yesterday, Dan Bongino showed up to work. By the way, imagine if you showed up for work and that was literally a breaking news story on cable news. What must it be like to be Dan Bongino? We've got big news here. A guy showed up to work. But, of course, it was big news because as of Friday, he had threatened to leave. He said that unless Pam Bondi, the attorney general, were fired, this according to multiple verified leaked accounts, then he would step down as deputy director of the FBI. Well, as of yesterday, he came back.
And we did find out and confirm this afternoon. My colleague Kristen Holmes reported that Dan Bongino did indeed actually go to work at the FBI today. He is still on the job as the deputy FBI director. But that was an open question. Just yesterday, Jake, when I was talking to officials who were talking about not only whether or not he wanted to stay in the job, but also how the president felt about this, because essentially it had become this huge dramatic moment where he wasn't speaking to a lot of people. Leadership at the Justice Department, White House officials had not really heard from Dan Bongino since last week. And so there were real questions about what he was going to do here. But also, Jake, what I was told is that the president was incredibly angry with how he had handled this situation, and also with the FBI director, Kash Patel. There had been some reporting that he might also consider resigning. He put out a statement over the weekend saying that was not true, and he was going to stay at the FBI as long as President Trump will have him there. But Jake, really to just kind of encapsulate where the president came down on all of this, yesterday we saw him attending a soccer game in New Jersey. By his side was the Attorney General Pam Bondi. So despite the MAGA backlash that she has faced, and it has been quite a lot of it from his supporters, the president says he is sticking by her for now.
All right. So, a lot of people have been asking me to comment on this stuff because I know a lot of the players in it, and it's a big story. And I get that. I do. And at the same time, I just want you to know that most of what we do here is a critical analysis of liberals and Democrats and the media, all the same thing, really. And whenever it's sort of an intramural fight amongst friends of mine and people who do what I do, my instinct is always to sit back and say, you know what, there are plenty of places if you're looking for criticism of conservative media outlets and conservatives and Republicans. Please, that's like 98% of media out there. Why do I need to jump on board with that as well? That said, this is becoming a media story, I think, and how this is being covered and how we're all talking about it in the media. And I think that's fascinating, and we have much to discuss about it. Let me just say that I want to reiterate something here. I have sources in this government, too. Thank you very much. And my sources tell me that Kash Patel was never on board with this idea that it's Pam Bondi or me. This report that Kash Patel was going to walk with Dan Bongino if Pam Bondi were not fired, I'm hearing that that's not so. And Kash Patel was dragged into this thing. And that's why he put out that statement on Saturday saying, it's my pleasure to serve with the president. And I intend to do so and continue to do so. We've got good work to do. Whether the president is angry at Dan Bongino or not, if the reports are true, that he gave the president an ultimatum, basically, which is, I mean, that's what the report was. And everybody was repeating that on Friday. All of the, what they call MAGA influencers, right? They were all saying, yep, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. And one wonders where they're hearing it from. If it is true that Dan Bongino said it's Pam Bondi or me, that's not a smart thing to do with the president of the United States, any president of the United States. You do not give presidents ultimatums, especially Donald Trump. And just on the face of it, first of all, Donald Trump says he's happy with Pam Bondi's performance. I'm not as happy, but that's fine. I'm not the president. But even setting that aside for a second, of these two people, Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi, one of them, if you replace them, requires Senate confirmation. The other one doesn't. I'll let you do the math. But it's just a political calculation sometimes. Oh, also, by the way, one of them is a long time, like decades old ally of Susan Wiles, the chief of staff of the White House, the person who ran the president's campaign in 2024 and is very tight with the president of the United States. The other one is not. By the way, the one who's tight with Susie Wiles is the blonde. Either way, this is a fight that you don't want to go into unless you know you're going to win it. So it looks like Dan Bongino is back to work for now. Now, just so you know, that might be because Trump said, no, I'm not going to do what you want. You go back to work. That's possible. Or it's possible because behind the scenes, Dan Bongino has been able to implore the team there that they need to do a better job messaging this and be more transparent and be more forthright with the Epstein investigation. And he, behind the scenes, won the day. That's possible too. We've got more on that coming up in a second. First, though, a huge development last night with Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz was on the Sean Spicer show a week or so ago. Alan Dershowitz was named as one of the perpetrators of horrific sexual crimes against one of the juveniles in Epstein Island. Dershowitz fought back. Dershowitz defended himself. Dershowitz claimed his innocence. The accuser recanted and changed her story. But in the course of that, Alan Dershowitz was able, through discovery, to see a lot of the Epstein information. He had said to Sean Spicer on his show, listen, there is a list. There are people's names out there. I've seen it. Now, yesterday, he modified that story a little bit.
As far as the suicide is concerned, of course it was a suicide, but it was a suicide, I believe, assisted by jailers. It was not a suicide that he could have committed alone. I think the jailers had something to do with his cellmate being dismissed, with the cameras being turned off. So there are things that can be hidden, but there's no smoking gun here, and there's no fault on the part of this administration, as far as I can tell.
All right, sorry. That was the second clip about the suicide, and here is the other clip about the so-called Epstein files.
The government hiding a client list or anything that the Trump administration could release tonight?
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them from accusers that accuse Jeffrey, that accuse various people of having improper sex. And that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out. Now, of course, because I was the lawyer and I did all the investigations, I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court. So many of the things that are being suppressed by two judges in Manhattan, and they're doing it largely to protect the alleged accusers who are, in the view of the judges, victims, even though we don't know what their actual status is. But the judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed. Now, maybe there is some, but I'm simply not aware of it. And so I think it's important to place the blame where the blame deserves to be placed.
All right. So Dershowitz, first of all, says it's not like there's a list, A to Z, 1 through 300 or whatever. It's just that names show up in these court documents where accusers have called out these people's names. But again, none of this has been tried in a court, so it's just an accusation. If the names are released, Dershowitz is saying, and these judges are saying, that would first of all render these people guilty until proven so. And secondly, it could, as he claims here, the judges said that could actually re-victimize the victims. I'm not quite sure how that squares out, but the bottom line here is that it's not up to the Attorney General of the United States. It's this judge who is protecting this information. By the way, what's the names of the judges? And again, get everything out, for God's sake. Now, here's where things get even more complicated in terms of what the conversation is here in the media and the people in the media who are having the conversation. If you dare to suggest that Jeffrey Epstein may have been protected by intelligence agencies because all of this information that think about what Dershowitz just said there. He's got, potential information on elected officials and powerful figures. And we already know some of the names in foreign countries who are powerful members of the royal family, for crying out loud. Huge corporate media moguls' names have been floated around here. Of course, a former president of the United States name has been floated out there multiple times. We know for a fact that he was on the manifests. Bill Clinton was on the manifest for his private airplane, right? So these are incredibly powerful, connected people. And if Jeffrey Epstein has damning information on them, that means that it can be used for foreign intelligence purposes, or maybe even our own domestic intelligence purposes. Here's the problem. The second you suggest that, or even specifically suggest that it's the nation of Israel that Jeffrey Epstein may have had an intelligence relationship with, you're immediately called by some people anti-Semitic, which is kind of ridiculous. And that's where Megyn Kelly comes in yesterday on her program, because she has made that suggestion. And, well, she defended herself from the charge of being anti-Semitic.
The facts, and I see you doing the same. Tucker's saying what his opinion is, which is not outside of the mainstream at all, that he thinks Epstein worked for Mossad or was somehow an asset to them. But this immediately, even if you're as staunch a defender of Israel in general, I haven't defended all the way they've conducted this war, but in general, their right to defend themselves after the horrific attack of 10/7, and of American Jews who are facing overwhelming discrimination on college campuses. Even if you're in my position, you get lunatics out there who accuse you of being like anti-Semitic because you are exploring this theory, which is such utter bullshit. And honestly, like, I will just say this for the record. If you think that those kind of smears are going to stop me from reporting, you haven't been paying attention to my career at all. If anything, when you accuse me of shit like that, I will double, triple, and quadruple down. It tells me that I'm onto something. So nice try, but you've chosen the wrong person. You know, and I can hear Tucker's frustration when they do this to him. He's much more controversial than I am because he's interviewing the president of Iran and things like I'm like I've been a defender of Israel. So people who say I'm not can fuck off. They don't know me at all. I'm allowed to figure out what Jeffrey Epstein's actual connections were. And if that leads me to our government or Israel's, too bad.
All right. So that's a great point. And by the way, Megyn, love you, but you should probably invest in one of these. Just saying. It's simple. Just there. And now no one. That said, she makes a good point. And let's face it. I mean, listen, if I were to, and listen, I'm open to that idea. It's very possible that Jeffrey Epstein was gathering this information from multiple foreign intelligence agencies. If that information even exists, by the way, could be our intelligence agencies, could be Israel. And for someone to say, I'm anti-Semitic, please, I'm told that I'm too easy on Israel on a regular basis. So that's ridiculous. Here's the thing. The problem is that there are podcasters, there are influencers, there are people with huge microphones who, yes, are saying that Jeffrey Epstein was doing all of this on behalf of the Israeli government. But here's the thing. Every other episode that they do, they say that everything else going on in the world is Israel's fault. I mean, we know who they are. And it seems like everything ends up being something connected to the state of Israel. When that's your content, when that's all you're talking about, maybe the suggestion that you're anti-Semitic might stick a little bit better. But here's anti-Semite Megyn Kelly having anti-Semite Ben Shapiro on the show. Wait a second, that doesn't make sense at all. And they get into a very interesting conversation that I think a lot of us are having right now. Okay, who are we supposed to believe here? Because we've got Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, who for the last several years, everyone's saying 10 years. It hasn't been 10 years. Let me just reset here about the Epstein story, okay? Epstein killed himself when Trump was in office. He was being tried on charges under President Trump, by the way, and we all expected a lot of information to come out because of that. Epstein's death meant that, oh, well, this stuff is not evidence in a court of law anymore, and maybe these things aren't going to be put out in the public. But then Ghislaine Maxwell is tried, and we're thinking, oh, good, we're going to get all the information of Ghislaine Maxwell. That happened during the Biden administration. She's convicted, and we're like, oh, great, she got convicted. Who are we going to go after next? Because if she got convicted for sex trafficking, it means she was trafficking these girls for clients. So who was she trafficking them for? Let's get that next step now. Let's go. And then it stopped. We're done. Ghislaine Maxwell is convicted. Everybody go home now. Now that was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And that's when everyone started saying, oh, hell to the no. Stop. By the way, I want to just give a hat tip on Epstein, by the way, because the very first time I ever heard the name Jeffrey Epstein or read the name Jeffrey Epstein and saw a deep dive into the Epstein story, it was the one and the only Ann Coulter. She was the tip of the spear on this story when nobody else was paying attention, like 15 years ago. Ann Coulter, go back and look at her archive. She knows everything there is to know about the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Anyway, so it's really only been about 5 years that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and a lot of other people have said, we've got to get to the bottom of this Epstein thing. What the hell are they hiding? Well, who were they protecting? What is this all about, right? And now those two guys are in charge. And first they come out, a month and a half ago and say, well, he definitely killed himself. And we're like, what? And trust us, he killed himself. And Bongino says, I'm going to release the video. I've seen the video of the jail cell, and it's clear that nobody went in there and tampered. And then they release the video, and there's a minute missing. It's like, oh, come on, right? And then this memo comes out last week with both FBI and Justice Department letterhead. Listen, in Washington, D.C., when they put out a shared statement like that, there's one of two reasons. Either everybody wants credit for it, or nobody wants the singular blame for it. In this case, it's the latter, where they say, case closed, nothing to see here. And forgive us if we feel a little less than satisfied by that report. That said, as we saw the drama unfold last week where Dan Bongino was threatening to leave, at no time was there a suggestion that anything is being covered up, right? Bongino didn't say, I'm leaving because you're hiding the truth and you're not convicting people. That wasn't the message. The message was that he was angry at how this was being handled in the media, and rightly so. Remember all the influences with their binders that Pam Bondi gave them? What the hell was that show? That was ridiculous. It made them all look stupid and made the attorney general look like a duplicitous, lying carnival barker. So, and then leaking the memo to Axios. Again, if I were Bongino, and I know how the media works, I would be angry too. But I want to remind you, at no point during this entire thing last week where everything started to explode, was there any suggestion that the results of that memo were incorrect. But as far as I'm seeing, there has been no public statement or even a leaked statement from Bongino or Patel that says, oh, we're angry because this case isn't closed and there should be convictions. No, it's about how this has been handled in the media, which brings us to this debate between Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro, where they discuss the value of sources saying one thing or the other anonymously, which is a big part of what we talk about here. Remember, anonymous sources. When something is leaked anonymously, the person leaking it and why they leaked it is a big part of the story that never gets explored. So whose anonymous leaks are you going to believe now?
I have the names of the people who are making the claim that that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, and that the most gross, and sort of extreme of the conspiracy theories, or theories, just don't even call them conspiracy theories, the most sort of, extreme version of the theory is not true. I have names of the people who are claiming that. Okay, they are all in the administration. And this is my point. If other people want to make those claims that are counter to that, then they should provide evidence or at least put their names on it so we can question them about that as well, because otherwise we're just in the realm of pure speculation. And frankly, I just don't find that useful. I would love more useful information. This is why I'm angry at Pam Bondi. I think there should be all the useful information possible, but the same thing holds true for people who are making claims on the other side. Otherwise, I can claim that he was working for a cadre of space aliens who are blackmailing high-profile Americans in order to protect from a future invasion. And there's just about as much evidence for that as many of the claims that are being made on the other side.
All right, well, let's talk about that.
That is made requires evidence. Any claim that's being made requires actual evidence. And at the very least, in the absence of evidence, the credible names of the people that I can either trust or not trust, ranging from, again, the president of the United States and vice president to the head of the FBI, the AG, and the deputy head of the FBI.
Well, I think it's very hard to say those people need to come out and put their names on these claims when they're working for an administration, this one and the one before, that didn't want that to come out. You're asking somebody to countermand the people they work for.
How am I supposed to falsify their claims? Now we're working in the realm of the unfalsifiable.
You're not, but look, Ben, you can't come to me and say, everybody I know says he killed himself. And then I respond saying, I actually have my own sources who say he didn't. And then you say, well, your sources are not valid because they won't put their names on it. Okay, who are your sources? Let's go down the list and then we'll talk about why they might be saying that.
My sources are the president of the United States, the vice president of the United States, Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, Dan Bongino, the deputy head of the FBI, and Pam Bondi, the attorney general. And those aren't just my sources. They're everybody's sources because they publicly came out and said this.
All right. So I'm going to jump in here for a second because I think Ben makes a good point there. And again, all of this has to do with two things. First of all, number one is just put everything out. Be transparent. Stop trying to protect us from things. That's why people 50 years after the fact still have theories about what happened with JFK. When do they never learn their lesson on this stuff? Okay. So number one, be transparent and get all the information out there. Why aren't they doing that? Okay. Because if they don't, that's where speculation happens. And at this point, sadly, once again, it's probably too late, because once they do release everything, we're going to say, oh, well, you destroyed all the really damning stuff. This isn't everything. All right. That's number one. But number two, short of releasing everything, we Americans are stuck in a very unnatural position. We have to decide who we're going to trust. That's just the bottom line. And sadly, I don't think you should ever trust anybody in the government, right? Because inherently, people who work in government are politicians, and politicians, by definition, they just lie. They do. Some lie more than others, but we're being asked to trust. Okay. So Ben makes a solid point, though, because we got two different groups of people that we're being told to trust. One group, Megan's group, are anonymous. They're people who work in the shadows of the government who are telling people, hey, I know otherwise, but I'm not going to put my name on it. But trust me, there's more to see there. Now, here's my problem with that. I'm sure you've all seen the old clips of Dan Bongino on his podcast where he said of the Epstein story, yeah, listen, I've got sources in the government and they tell me X, Y, and Z. And they tell me this, this, and this. I've got people who told me that Epstein this, Epstein that, and Epstein was doing this, and Epstein was doing that, and these are the people connected to it. My sources have told me that, right? That was Dan Bongino as a podcaster with his anonymous sources. You've seen the clips. Well, now Dan Bongino, as the deputy director of the FBI, suggests otherwise. And if that's the case, well, he should tell us who those anonymous sources were, shouldn't he? Shouldn't he say, listen, these guys told me this. Now that I'm in a position to see it, it's not true. I think that that would be really valuable. Who was lying to you then? Lay that out there. And if you don't, then what are we supposed to do with this, right? So Megyn Kelly's friends are anonymous who were saying, yes, there's more to see there, and he didn't kill himself. Ben Shapiro, now again, you might trust those people, but we don't have their names, we don't have their faces, we don't have anything. Ben Shapiro is saying, listen, the people who are telling me he did kill himself, it's Dan Bongino who's telling me he killed himself. Kash Patel is telling me he killed himself. Pam Bondi is telling me he killed himself. And since the president of the United States has kept them working for him, and the president of the United States wants them all to stay on the job and wants us to move on from this story, one has to assume that the president of the United States also buys that story. Since he has not contradicted it, he's got to own it. It is a work product of his administration. So the president as well. So are you going to trust anonymous people, or are you going to trust Trump and Bondi and Patel and Bongino? And again, I hate the fact that we're stuck having to trust somebody, but since we do, who are you more likely to trust? People who put their names on it or people who stay anonymous? That's a strong and valid point. Well, now watch how the debate unfolds.
Okay. Trump hasn't specifically weighed in on that specific aspect of it. We've all seen the limited things that Trump has said and tweeted on this. And J.D. Vance was calling for transparency and suggesting otherwise prior to taking office. He hasn't commented on this so far, so he's not one of your sources.
He's the vice
you've
president.
Got Kash, you've got Dan, and you've got Pam, and we've already discussed that memo in full detail. I'm talking about people behind the scenes who, prior to this, to Trump taking office, I'm not going to get too specific, but trust me, I have high-level sources who have said they don't believe any of that. Any of that. Okay. So, and I'm not going to out them for purposes of convincing you, but you're
real fast. I'm going to jump in like one or two more times real fast. But did you notice what Megyn Kelly just did there? I have well-sourced people, high-level people. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but they tell me they don't believe that. Whoa, hold on a minute. They don't believe that, or they know that it's not true. There's a big difference between those two things. I just wanted to point out that that's what was said. More.
Telling me name them. No, I'm not going to. I don't have authorization.
I'm not saying,
and then you say, well, I dismiss all of it because you won't name them.
Hold on, Megyn, I'm not saying you should name them. I'm saying they should name themselves, because otherwise they are being complicit in one of the greatest cover-ups in the history of the American
Republic. That's easy for you to say, Ben. That's easy. That's very easy for you to say.
Why is that easy for me to say? Why?
Because you'll have your job and you'll have your millions, no matter
Are
what
you
they
kidding?
do.
Megan, give me a break. If somebody came out today and they were a whistleblower on the greatest scandal in the history of the American Republic, they would make more money tomorrow than in their entire life working for the FBI. That's ridiculous.
Okay, there are reasons not to cross the people who are in charge, and that's all I'm going to say. And look, this is me not having drawn a conclusion.
All right, this is the last time I'll jump in on this. I do find this fascinating, and I like and respect both of these people. I only know one of them personally, not the other. The one I don't know personally is blonde. Ben makes a good point. The whistleblower who reveals all about Jeffrey Epstein will not want for funding or riches and fame. Okay. But what Megyn Kelly just said there, I think is really requires some examination. And frankly, delves into a part of the whole so-called conspiracy world online that needs to be tempered and not given gasoline. And I don't think Megyn did this on purpose, but listen to the language she uses.
And you'll have your millions, no matter
Are
what
you
they
kidding?
do.
Megan, give me a break. If somebody came out today and they were a whistleblower on the greatest scandal in the history of the American Republic, they would make more money tomorrow than in their entire life working for the FBI. That's ridiculous.
Okay, there are reasons not to cross the people who are in charge.
Who's in charge? When you say the people who are in charge, who are you talking about? The people in charge of what? Are you talking about people in charge of the federal government? Because that's Donald Trump. Are you saying that there's reasons not to cross Donald Trump? Or you see what I'm saying? See, it's that language that unless you explain what you're talking about, it can be left wide open for people to say, see, there's a secret shadow government who makes all the decisions, and they're the ones who are really in charge. And it just, well, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that that's the case, but it's one of those things that's unprovable until it is.
And that's all I'm going to say. And look, this is me not having drawn a conclusion. I don't know what the truth is. I've been reporting in a way. I mean, I see you've taken a side that you've chosen to believe the story that's being offered, and that's fine. A lot of people have. I'm not there yet. I don't actively say that there's a pedophile ring. I don't say any of that. I'm just following the facts, and we're not at the place where I can draw that conclusion.
Well, no, I can draw the conclusion that the evidence that I'm seeing and the people who are speaking about it lead me toward this particular conclusion. And if counter evidence is presented that is not speculative, then I will change my conclusion, because that's what I've done on this case. Until this memo came out, I was weighing toward the more extreme version of this theory. And you can look back at my tweets and what I've said about it. And then this came out, and now my perspective has changed. When the facts change and the people who are speaking,
I guess I'm just not that trusting of government. There are other facts.
All right. So if you're wondering where I stand on this, I am lined up pretty well with the President of the United States right now and with Ben on this. Listen, I will follow what facts I have in front of me. And up until, just like with Ben, up until Dan Bongino and Kash Patel went on Fox News and said Epstein killed himself, and up until this latest memo came out, I was open to all kinds of for lack of a better term, conspiracy theories about what was going on in real time with Jeffrey Epstein and all of those very powerful people. But here's the problem. We can only go off of the facts that we have in front of us. And this memo that was released last week, it's a game changer. I'm sorry if you don't see it that way. Because here's the thing. Let's say new evidence comes to light, and I hope there is more evidence. I want to see it. And the new evidence says that Bill Gates was in fact guilty of horrific crime. I'm just using Bill Gates as an example. Don't worry, Bill. Don't sue me. I'm going to help you out here. Let's say this evidence says that Bill Gates is guilty of unspeakable crimes on Epstein Island, and he should be convicted for the worst possible heinous things. Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem, guys. The U.S. Justice Department under President Donald Trump and the FBI under President Donald Trump has produced a work product, a document that says case closed. There's no evidence to suggest anything else. Bill Gates, I'm thinking, is going to be able to hire some pretty good lawyers. And if you go after Bill Gates on something like this because of new evidence, you're going to say, excuse me, I've got a document from the Justice Department that says that this is all bogus. Maybe the memo should have never been released. I don't know. But the fact that it's there now, it changes so much. Now, if there is new evidence, then let's look at it. But in the meantime, this is where we are on this story. And if there is any original sin in all of it, it might be people who use their influence and their platforms to go out there and say that they knew for a fact that there was this storyline here and there was evidence to prove that really bad people did really bad things, but they didn't actually know it for a fact. But they said they did. And they told a lot of people in their audience that they did. And now where are we? Especially considering some of those people who were in that position to lead a lot of people down that path, they're now in a position to have the facts. And those very same people are now telling us, nope. What are we supposed to do with that at this point? So I'm sort of with Ben on that, and strangely with President Trump on it. One wrinkle in this story that's really sort of changed things around in terms of the media narrative and the political narrative in this country is suddenly Democrats are beating the drum, wanting the Epstein files released. Hank Johnson even wrote a song about it.
Congressman Hank Johnson coming to give you some more ear candy or perhaps an earache. But I'm going to do my best off of this Jason Isbell tune, Dreamsicle. Epstein died by suicide. Believe that, and you must be blind. You've been telling us you released the file, but where are they? We've gone along with what's been told. We've had plenty of time, you're in control. But now you say you will withhold the Epstein file. Dreamsicle on a summer night in a folding armchair. Trump's howling at the moon. Release the Epstein files soon.
Congressman Johnson, seek help. Seek professional help. But just to be clear here, is the new line from the Democrats in this country, including Dick Durbin and Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Markey and many others, AOC, who are all now demanding that the Epstein files be released, is it their position that Epstein did not kill himself? And is it their position now that there is some sort of broad conspiracy? Is that why they're demanding the files be released? Noted. Be careful what you wish for. There is more information to be released, even if there are no charges coming, and we the people deserve it, even if all roads lead to Chappaqua. All right, guys, thanks for today's show. I appreciate it. We've got a Rumble super chat from Arthur Brogdon. $6 super chat from Brogdon regarding Newsom. Hey, I spent 6 years jumping out of airplanes in the 83rd Airborne Infantry, and I never saw anybody that looked like you, Gavin, period, full stop. 82nd Airborne Infantry. Thanks, brother. That's a good one. It's true. I don't see anybody who looks like me wanting those jobs. Ball State alum, $10 super chat. Hair gel's argument, 21 other states are doing it. That didn't work for Kali at My Lai, and it didn't work for the Nazis at Nuremberg. Yeah, exactly. All the other states are mutilating genitals and taking children from their parents if they don't go along with this mania. Is a hell of a statement. That's what manning up is all about there. Did I just do that when I said man up? Thanks for watching today. Appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, my name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.